Okay guys, we've got some interesting Nintendo Switch information, RPG news, and a little bit of Xbox hardware information as well to go over, and something that I know you guys are going to love with Visions of Mana and Final Fantasy Tactics and what's going on there, and a little Nintendo Switch game that seems to have evergreen status as well. But before we get into all of that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now let's go ahead and jump right into this article that I find to be absolutely brilliant from Square Enix and the producer of Visions of Mana. And the headline is Visions of Mana producer refuses to change series identity for Western audiences. It is best to deliver the game based on the developer's creative vision. Now, this is something that's had a long history. I'm not going to get into all of it, but it dates back to Phil Fish and the early 2010s, late 2000s, where a lot of Western developers, Western studios felt that Japan was antiquated. Japan was behind the times. Japan sucks at this point. They're not creating innovative games like Mass Effect or Dragon Age in the RPG space. They're being left behind. They're old dinosaurs. And I think that that's pretty much been blown over at this point, right? That's not a thing in today's day, but it was. And there are some developers that feel the need, I would think Square Enix to a degree with Final Fantasy, that they have to appeal to the Western audiences for sales. So they make certain type of changes to do that. Now, Square Enix's Mana series producer, Masaru Oyamada, has declared that rather than bringing in new fans by changing the action RPG's line core identity, he hopes to do something by celebrating those elements which have made it, quote, popular in Japan for a long time. Now, this is from Bounding Into Comics. Shout outs to them for the roundup on this. So here is what the producer had to say. He's been there since 2009 as well. The original interview was from March from the website Automation. So here's what he had to say in general about the series and its appeal for overseas players and Japanese players. Quote, in Japan, there are many people who have been playing the series for a long time and are familiar with the IP's history. So the reaction has been half expectant and half anxious, the producer told the outlet. On the contrary, overseas players showed a lot of curiosity about the game, what it entails, including if it would be available on platforms that they own. The difference between the reactions is something interesting. Now, he was also asked any plans to see how you would reach out to Western players when it comes to the future of the series, and the Mana producer said this: I get the feeling that many people who picked up Secret of Mana back in 1993, or in Japan it was called Seiken Densetsu 2, at the time it came out, were young, like I was, because I regularly receive feedback from people who play the latest entries through the lens of their childhood experiences with the series. I hope that as they grow older and become parents, they will recommend the Mana series to their children and tell them about how fun it is. The unique atmosphere and design might make some people feel that it's a bit childish, he added. However, these are the strengths of the Mana series. Rather than changing these features that make the Mana series, I hope that new players will come to like these games that have been popular in Japan for a long time for what they are. Then when asked by Automation if his declaration meant that he was taking care not to let your series identity become westernized, Oyamada ultimately affirmed, quote, I think the visuals of the Mana games are distinctive characteristic. Therefore, it's best to deliver the game based on the developer's creative vision. For example, there are many different types of characters in the Mana series, he concluded. I think the fun of the game is encountering this mysterious world and its inhabitants, and because of that, we don't have a strong focus on a particular audience. However, we do work on the game while bearing in mind that the Mana series is loved by fans from all over the world. Now, this is a really good interview and some fantastic thoughts from him, because I get that quite a bit from people talking about from the outside looking into Xenoblade, oh, they should change this. It should be more like Kingdom Hearts in combat, or it should be more like Ys, or it should be more like this or that. And it's like, no, this is the creative vision that the producer wants to have. And they're hoping to get new people in, as people who played Xenoblade Chronicles back in the day, and now as they get older, they can recommend it to other people if they have kids, cousins, whatever the case is. And I feel that this evolution of the Mana series coming to new platforms and having a new game for the first time in nearly 2 decades, a decade and a half or something like that, this is going to be a good way to get more people into the franchise. And I think that having it on a multitude of platforms and having it to where it's going to be going back to the roots, but then also adding in some new stuff is what keeps the identity of the Mana series and what keeps it fresh and fun for everyone, whether you're a newcomer or you're a classic old school fan like myself, where I played the old school Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo back in like 1993. I remember playing it and being blown away that you can play an RPG, a traditional action RPG like this, with 3 players. So I do think that that's the charm in the series, and I'm so glad that he said this. They're not trying to westernize it. They're not trying to get the Call of Duty crowd or trying to get the crowd that thinks that, hey, we need to have games that are like this or look all serious or blood or anything like that. They're going to make what they're going to make, and hopefully people kind of latch on and try it out, give it a chance, especially if it gets some great reviews, and obviously it looks beautiful from a graphic, pleasing aesthetic. So that's my thoughts on this, and I think this was a phenomenal interview. But let's talk about something that's also incredible, and that is Final Fantasy Tactics. Fans have been left waiting for decades for a new Final Fantasy Tactics game. This is still one of the best games. The original release on the PlayStation 1 has so many good things about it. Not even a remaster or remake in the modern day, and fans have been chomping at the bit for anything about Final Fantasy Tactics and it coming back. Now, we had the Nvidia GeForce leak a while back that showed that Square Enix was working on something, but it's pretty much been radio silent since then, as other games have came back, like Tactics Ogre. We've had new Tactics games like Triangle Strategy. We've had stuff like Unicorn Overlord. There's been a lot of great Tactics games to come about and have success selling well. So does that mean Final Fantasy Tactics is closer than ever before? Will we see it soon? Well, it seems like Square Enix agrees here. Shoutouts to my man Stealth, because in a recent interview, Square Enix producer / director Yoshi P says it's about time for another Final Fantasy Tactics game to be made. Now, this was a huge interview with The Gamer. They talked about Final Fantasy 16. They talked about a lot of the DLC stuff. They talked about Final Fantasy 16 having a tactics game. There's all sorts of things that they did discuss, but the biggest thing here is that somebody high up in power in the ranks at Square Enix that has influence and can get a budget and get things approved states that it is time for Final Fantasy Tactics to come back. And I agree. I think that Final Fantasy Tactics needs to come back in some way, shape, or form. I think that the most ideal thing to do with Final Fantasy Tactics is probably have a really nice remaster of the original game and pair that with a brand new game as well. Now, they did this before, or at least they've done it before, with the strategy when it comes to a different franchise at Square Enix, and that was Valkyrie Profile. If you remember, a couple years back, they wanted to do a brand new Valkyrie Profile game, which they did, and it wasn't really that good. And then they also did a re-release or remaster of Valkyrie Profile Lenneth, which is really good, the original one from the PS1. And unfortunately, the new game for Valkyrie Elysium is not that good. It's got its moments, but it's not that great of a game. But Valkyrie Profile Lenneth is still just as fun and just as amazing as it was from back in the day, but even better now because you can play it on a huge TV and it's got better audio and it's got better quality and it looks a bit sharper and everything's just better with the game. Loading times way better. So I do feel that that is probably the best way to go about it here. Get us a nice remaster, re-release of the game on modern platforms, and then get a brand new Final Fantasy Tactics game to to follow that up. And that would be really good. I think people would be excited and want something like that because Final Fantasy Tactics is such a classic and great franchise. But the big thing that they should not fall into here is changing up the gameplay to the point to where it's not what fans remembered and loved. And that was the problem with the new Valkyrie game. Like, people want that button map to characters type of combat where you can do different tactics and strategy based on what character you have assigned to the buttons. And they didn't do that with Valkyrie Elysium. They turned it into a really bad clone of like Kingdom Hearts or other action games or Bayonetta or DMC. And it's nowhere near as good as any of those games. Like, not even close to those games. And they got completely slammed in the reviews. And maybe it's a bit better than what people were saying. I played the game, but at the end of the day, it's not the Valkyrie profile that people wanted. So I think that's what they should do. Be cautious with this one, and I think that it could be really good. But obviously, if there's any plans for them to do this, we know about them sooner. They'd be coming up, I guess. Square Enix doesn't really do their directs as much anymore. Those Square Enix Presents or whatever they had, so maybe we'll see something later just announced at one of these Summer Games Fests or something else that one of these companies had with the Nintendo Direct, or like an Xbox Showcase, PlayStation Showcase. We could see something announced at one of those. But this might be some good news for Xbox fans. Maybe Idle Sloth over on Twitter clipped a portion of an interview that Phil Spencer had with Polygon talking about an Xbox handheld. And they said the Xbox hardware team is considering different hardware form factors and things that they could go do as it plans the future of Xbox hardware. What should we build that will find new players? Spencer said that will allow people to play at times when they couldn't go play in the past. So that definitely seems like they are prepping some type of portable device to probably link up with your PC or link up with your Xbox already. I'm guessing it could be something like a PlayStation Portal, or it could be something a bit more like a Steam Deck. But I think at the end of the day, Microsoft and everyone involved here is going to find out how difficult it is to do one of these, get it at a certain price, and get power, get the specs, get everything that you need, the screen and all that for an affordable price range. Because even if you look at what some people are saying, like, oh, we already have Steam Deck. Steam Deck costs, the lowest end model costs like $400, right? The one that's like the LCD. And then if you want the OLED, so the nicer one, which most people are going to want to play games portably, that costs $550. And then if you want the nicest one, that costs $650. So it's pretty expensive to get into that ecosystem. Now, of course, it links with your PC, your Steam, and all of that. So you can do a lot of things with it, the emulators, all that stuff. Nobody's disputing that. But there's a reason why Steam Deck has not been able to break open in terms of sales. Because one, it's only limited to their store, but two, they do not have the amount of orders coming in for them to expand their operation right now. So Microsoft is definitely having their work cut out for them if they want to get into this type of market, because outside of the Nintendo Switch, there's been no other handheld device or hybrid device like the Switch that's been able to really break open into the general market and sell at the clip that it sold, over 140 million units. Even still at this point, with the Steam Deck and with the ROG Ally and with all these other stuff that's coming out, Switch still destroys all of them when it comes to sales, and it's the weakest by far. And Nintendo's getting ready to launch their next system as well. So we'll see what Microsoft comes up with here, and I think that it would probably be in addition to what they're going to do with their next piece of console hardware, and they want to make sure that they have their cloud gaming to where you can play anywhere. So I completely get what they're going for here, but I don't think it's going to be easy overall. Now, for the last topic here, guys, we are going to go over a little bit of a evergreen game. It looks like Princess Peach Showtime once again. Still, if you look at Amazon, #1 on the recent releases for Amazon bestsellers and #1 on the eShop. So people are continuing to pick up Princess Peach Showtime. Now, I felt that this game could have a limit. First week or so, okay, it's at the top, but then things kind of drop off afterwards. But it seems like it's actually getting some good post-launch sales, which kind of put it in the evergreen territory if it continues this. Now, I still haven't completely beat the game yet. I'm in the middle of it, still playing, getting through. I've been super busy with videos and other things, but I enjoy the game. And I think specifically for people just getting into games for the first time, or I would say for young children, parents playing with their kids, or people that just like Princess Peach, this is a fantastic game for them to play, and a little bit of a change of pace considering the different types of gameplay modes that they're in, and having Peach have her own adventure, which is cool. We haven't seen anything like this since Super Princess Peach on the Nintendo DS more than a decade ago. And this game with Princess Peach Showtime is way better than that game. So I can see why it's continuing to have some success here. Also in Japan, it was also one of the top, if not the top games sold once again. So this is definitely a good thing to see overall. Another different style of game starring Princess Peach. Maybe this turns into its own franchise in the future, which is what I would like to see. Just like how Luigi's Mansion got its own franchise and it's huge now, I think that this could happen with Princess Peach Showtime if they feel like doing it and if these sales continue to be strong in the future. So that's going to wrap it up for this video here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe if you are someone new. Click that notification bell and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG videos and more right here on screen. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.